Okay, we're going. We're going. Green light means go. All right. I hope everything is going great for everyone, and that I was just thinking this morning. Well, let me just first of all just say good morning, and again, I hope everybody's doing great. I'm gonna set my alarm for like 8:45, and I'm gonna jump right into this, and then open it up and just see how you guys are progressing. How are you doing on the practical daily application of applying these things really to integrating it into your life on a daily basis, and what are the results that you're getting out of it? Are you seeing results? Are you seeing the things that you're writing down? Are you moving closer to your overall end goal? I'd like to hear that and just see what you guys are experiencing individually. I picked up this book today. I just pulled it off my shelf, Think and Grow Rich, because the thing I was thinking about was desire. And something came to me yesterday that I think will help give some insight to each one of you as to how important it is to be constantly, remember, let me pull up the book. It was a constant, right? Consistent, constant. Let's see. So strong and constant. And if your gratitude is strong and constant. And really, it's not just gratitude in general. It's a very specific gratitude. It would be a gratitude that would be more along the lines of the things you're grateful for that you have written down on your template. That's where your gratitude should be strong and constant for the things that have not yet happened. The fantasy, taking it on as that is now your new reality. So when the gratitude towards those things are strong and constant, without a break in it, because when you do have that, isn't that how you'll be living your life? You'll be experiencing it. It's got to get to that place to where you're influencing the subconscious and you're influencing it on a consistent basis. The subconscious is where the magic happens. The power that's within us, it's described as the subconscious. It's described as a lot of different things. There's a lot of different names for that. Not a lot. There's different names that people use for it, but it's the power within us. And so to try and get that across, see, you're building something here. This has not yet been built. And one of the things that I remember very well, and one of the things that influenced me the most in the beginning in listening to those CDs from Bob Proctor, The Power to Have It All, was that thoughts are things. That thoughts are the most powerful, most potent force known to man. And I would listen to that particular CD because there were 7 of them, and they each had their own little subjects in each one of them. And I'd listen to that one over and over and over about how powerful my thoughts were. And as a man thinketh, so is he, and as on the inside, so on the outside. So I realized that's where the work has to be, is to get my thoughts to where they're consistent and in harmony with the person I desired to be. Not the person I was, the person I desired to be. So that means if it's a radical change from who I was to who I want to be, then I just got to kill off the old me. I got to bury the old me, right? And not let it keep popping up. That was the work that I realized I needed to do. I needed to get to where my default thoughts were my success in Isagenix, the success I'm having in making an impact in people's lives, the success that my customers are having, the success that the business builders are having and that are joining my team. I realized that that's where the work was. And that was my number one priority. Yeah, I had to be in action and be doing the action-oriented things physically that were in alignment with the person who I wanted to be. which wasn't any different than what most people are doing. Most people are in that kind of alignment. They're just not getting their mind right first. So yesterday I was thinking, I thought, oh, that's a good way of saying it. Think of a house. I think we've all seen in our neighborhood where something, a building was being built. The construction part of it, right? They clear the land, they lay the cement, then they start tacking down the 2x4s, and then they start building and piecing it all together. They're building something, and it's not built yet. And so therefore they have to be proactively engaged in a work that is constructing the building. If they stop, if the construction workers don't show up, does the building get finished? If the construction workers don't show up and proactively start lifting up hammers and nailing in nails and using their screw guns and, you know, all of that, does the building get built? If they're not there actively working on the building, constructing it, it doesn't get built. That's how critical this fantasy in turning it into a fact is. It isn't being built unless you're thinking about it in the right way, because it isn't built yet. By the time you've done the right effort and given it that consistency, and you're attracting things to you, anyone who's done this for a few days in a row, maybe a week, and you've really done it, and you were in harmony with it, you were feeling it, and you're feeling it throughout the day, you attracted people into your life that were in harmony with it. You've experienced it. It's just a matter of carrying on, right? Enduring to the end. That's the hard part in anything in life, is enduring to the end. And you've given up. Now, some of you haven't, and I see the success that you're having. So it's that important, it's that critical, it's that essential. Essential means essential, it's not optional. You've got to be like the construction workers at the construction site. And the moment that they stop lifting the hammer, they might even be sitting there at the construction site. But if they're just sitting there, it's not being built. They might be on the site, but if they're just standing around talking about something else, that building is not getting put together. It's not making any progress. The progress comes from proactive activity. And that's what you've got to be doing with this fantasy. Now, by the time you get it to where everybody's starting to see it and they can identify it, and it's taking on the semblance of that finished work, your subconscious is already taking it on as a part of you, 30, 60, 90 days. So it starts to become a habitual way of your thinking. You can backslide, don't get me wrong. You could start to throw in doubt and fear and backslide because of some event, and you start feeding that doubt and fear, you'll backslide and that building will totally be deconstructed. But if you understand and you're a knowing and you understand, and all you're getting, you've got understanding, you won't backslide because you won't stop doing what's necessary and what's essential. But the building that you've been working on for 90 days, it doesn't take as much effort mentally. You do have to be aware, you do have to guard it so that you don't backslide, but it's becoming a part of you. It's starting to be woven into the fibers of who you are. It's starting to create that new neural net that has now wired itself that way. I do not think there's even if I didn't do anything proactively, I have so built a neural net over these last 15 years that I would never go back to thinking the way I used to think 15 years ago. The neural net is just too sound. I would have to proactively start putting negative stuff in and start being skeptic and start, gossiping and doing all kinds of things every day. I'd have to proactively do that. And I could rewire myself to be a negative person, but that ain't gonna happen. So I hope that construction worker showing up and hammering the nails, lifting the 2x4s, cutting the boards with the saws, pulling out the tape measure, anything they're doing to progress that building of that structure along, if they're not actively doing it, then it's not going to make any progress in the building. And what I'm talking about here is not the physical labor as far as making connections with people. I'm talking about the mental. I'm talking about this right here. I'm talking about if you're not constructing this on a mental level, then it's not, you're not going to attract. You have to be engaged actively, like the construction workers doing the physical part of the building. You have to do that mentally. Glad I said that, because I don't want you to make the mistake of thinking, I mean, you need to be making your calls and all of that. No, even more important than that is that you're showing up and proactively, consistently, and constantly making progress on the building of your fantasy. You're building it. It's not built yet. And the moment you stop thinking about it in a positive way and have the feelings that are associated with it, it isn't being built. And you've got to do it on a conscious level. It's not yet subconscious. That'll happen after the 90, 120 days. All right? Consciously, you've got to be working to create the feelings that go along with this as an already accomplished fact. When you play at that level and you hold it there, some of you have played at that level and you've seen the success, but the work was too demanding of you. Your why wasn't big enough. You didn't feed your why enough. You didn't connect to your compelling vision enough every morning. And if you did, you didn't make that vision compelling enough. That's why I pulled out this. The reason I pulled out Think and Grow Rich is because there's a whole chapter on desire. Because as I was thinking about that, I'm like, okay, now we're really getting to an explanation that people will be able to understand. But it doesn't mean they're going to do it because they understand. There has to be a forerunner to you playing at that level, consciously, constantly connected to those good feelings of your fantasy. And that's where desire comes in. But what creates that desire? It's going to be your vision and the things that you'll have because you've done it. So I just want to read a couple paragraphs right here. I'm not going to get into it, but he's just reaffirming some of the things that I'm saying. This is in Think and Grow Rich. This one's in auto-suggestion in that chapter. Skepticism in connection with all new ideas is characteristic of all human beings. So there's going to be some skepticism that you have as you put this fantasy together. That's characteristic of all human beings. But if you follow the instructions outlined, your skepticism will soon be replaced by belief. And this in turn will soon become crystallized into absolute faith. Many philosophers have made the statement that man is the master of his own earthly destiny, but most of them have failed to say why he is the master. Okay, we hear that all the time. We hear these maxims, but they don't say, how do you achieve your destiny? And a lot of people throw up their hands in the air with frustration. We're learning that right now. I just gave you the pearl of great price. Now, you may not understand the principles and therefore may not have a great belief in this. I did it the other way around. I didn't do the template and then was able to see that it worked. I learned the principles that taught me I must make a template. You guys get that? So we're kind of going at it backwards here, but still, it's going to give some enlightenment to the person who's really wanting to know. So, and we are going through the principles at the same time. You might be thinking, well, Dave doesn't really get into the book that much. He keeps talking about other stuff. I'm trying to help you to get the principles. It's the principle of the thing, and it's taking the principles and getting them into a daily, practical, consistent application in your behavior. It's applying these principles so that they become a part of you and the way you conduct your behavior, right? So if you have to do this constantly, well, what about my kids? And I have to feed them. And what about my job and the demands that it has on me? And what about as I'm driving, I got to pay attention. You can be doing this while you're doing all of that stuff. You are anyways with other stuff. You'll be driving and you don't even know how you got to where you got. You don't remember the turns you made because you were on a thought trip about something. and you didn't even really know what it was, right? So why not do that in a proactive, intentional way, right? And you do it all day long. We go on thought trips all day long while we're engaged with stuff. Let's start doing it in a conscious way, in an intentional way. Now, in the chapter on desire, it says, to the uninitiated, well, the subtitle in this chapter, can you imagine yourself a millionaire? To the uninitiated who has not been schooled in the working principles of the human mind. So not been schooled, meaning you don't understand, like math, you learn the principles of math, you learn the principles of spelling, you know, and so it would be learning the principles of the human mind. They don't teach it in school. They don't teach it in school. These instructions may appear impractical. So doing this, somebody who would just come into this Zoom and start watching it that you pulled off the street, they would think it's so impractical. They would think we're crazy, right? And wouldn't even give it a second of thought of doing this, all right? So these instructions may appear impractical. It may be helpful to all who fail to recognize the soundness of the 6 steps to know that the information they convey was received from Andrew Carnegie, who began as an ordinary laborer in the steel mills, but managed, despite his humble beginnings, to make these principles yield him a fortune of considerable more than $100 million. All right, so just a little reconfirming facts there from another book, Think and Grow Rich. And there's not a lot of authors that really teach the truth at face value. You got to be careful where you turn to for this information. You could get taken down a road that doesn't lead you, you know, any closer to getting understanding. All right, so jumping into the Science of Getting Rich. I don't like this black background. It's because my desk covers up part of. Okay. All right, so we read this last week. And if your gratitude is strong and constant, what are you going to be grateful for? Not just anything, very specific, what you have in your template. That's why the 3x5 cards that you carry around in your pocket are so, so important. They're essential. Just like the nutrients in your food is essential. To me, the 3x5 cards are not optional because I can't do it on my own. I need the triggers to help me throughout the day to be very succinct, very specific, oriented with my thoughts. And it's not just reading them. Feeling is the secret. If you haven't listened to that audio or read that book from Neville Goddard, Feeling is the secret. It's the secret. It's how you're influencing the subconscious is when you get to the feeling of it. The feeling is in harmony and it matches what's on your 3x5 cards. And that's why he says at first there may be some skepticism, but as you keep doing that, you're going to be training the mind and rewiring your neural net. And so that skepticism fades away as you give it that kind of effort. So again, going back to, I kind of skipped over it, but it needs some attention right here, and that is your why. Really getting to that thing, because it's going to take the work to do this, right? This is the hardest work anybody will undertake to do. And so your why really has to be big enough. For me, maybe just like to give you a little bit of a peek into what that was for me in just a surface level. I wasn't thinking about this, but it was my connection with God and the impact that I wanted to make in the world and the individual that I could be in pleasing God. Not in pleasing him because I'm afraid of him, just because, like, have you ever had a sports coach or a teacher that you just really loved? You know they loved you and that they cared for you and they were concerned for your well-being. And so you wanted to show that reciprocation to them. It's that kind of like, I want to please God, right? And in that, I want to do the works that would be in harmony with that. I want to find and discover what those are and and then I could like really excel at them, take them beyond what's expected of me, go beyond the mark, go beyond the ordinary and you know, the norm, but take it to the next level. And so that's really what drives me on the core. And I believe all of us can tap into that because we all come from the same being. Spiritual DNA, we're all the same there. So it was that. Also, there were some things that I do enjoy, you know, and I do enjoy health. I do enjoy fitness. So isogenics wasn't something that was introduced to me as just an opportunity. It was also something that I enjoy doing. And so, but the thing that my why was really wanting to please God and enjoy my life at the same time, not self-sacrifice pleasing, not self-sacrifice and taking on the wrong mindset around that. I wanted to be a success in life as well, like successful, wealthy, impact, making a difference in the world with what it was I was engaged in, okay? So, and I just haven't got tired of that. I tapped into that thing that is like a well of water that just keeps springing up, right? So that why, that constant. All right, so the reaction in the formless substance will be strong and continuous. So the building, you're building now, you're taking and you're building something that isn't built, you're building it. And the formless substance will provide every needful thing, regardless of what it is. It will provide every needful thing. The movement of the thing you want will be always toward you, all right? So some of you have noticed by doing it, playing at that level, you've noticed it, but then you slacked off. I think he even talks about that later in the book. He says, but then you lost your, he doesn't say mojo, but he says something like that. You lost your mojo. But the value, so let's jump down to here. But the value of gratitude does not consist solely in getting you more blessings in the future. Without gratitude, you cannot long keep from dissatisfied thought regarding things as they are. A lot of times we'll self-induce the dissatisfied feelings by thinking about how is this going to happen? And it's a natural tendency to go to the how. You just have to know that you can't go there because you don't know how. Your finite mind could not figure out the divine connections that are going to come into your life. You're blind to them. So if you, at first, it doesn't give you a dissatisfied thought feeling when you start thinking about the how, but the domino effect of one thought to the next leading to the next, when you think about the how, it always leads to a dissatisfied thought and feeling. When you start out on that first step of going, well, how is this going to happen? That's a self-betrayal. There's a small, in the Mechanics Millionaire podcast, we say there's a small H and a big H. The small H is the income producing activities. You do have to do those. That's part of the how. That's how am I going to receive the blessings that are coming to me? Well, I got to be engaged in the work. I got to be making connections with people. I got to share the story. I got to share the electrifying story. I got to get better at sharing the story. I got to get better at inviting. I got to get better at following up. Those are skills. That's the small H. That H you are concerned with. How this fantasy is going to overall happen is none of your business. You don't know how. You're blind to it. You know that the actions you're taking and the thoughts you're entertaining are the part of the recipe that you need to be doing. And if you do them well, you know that something is going to show up. Something's going to be attracted to you. I can't tell you how many times the thing that attracted to me to help me reach the goal, I didn't even know the city that those people lived in. I didn't know that city existed. I didn't know those people existed. Okay, but they will come. Every needful thing will come. So don't worry about who's going to show up. who's going to be the one? Keep your mind at home. That's something I said over and over on the podcast. Guard your focus with your life. Keep your mind at home. And it's like an airplane. It continually is course correcting, course correcting, course correcting. It's kind of like that. Trying to find out when you're off course and get back on course. All right. So, but the value of gratitude does not consist solely in getting you more blessings in the future. Without gratitude, you cannot long keep from dissatisfied thought regarding things as they are. The moment you got to be delusional, right? And in that delusion, you get reminded by the physical reality that you've attracted up to that point in your life as an unconscious creator. Everything's always in a constant flux and change. That's the one thing that is for sure, is that everything changes. But for most people, that change is within a certain border, whatever their paradigm is, right? So even though things are changing, you still make about the same amount of money you made 15 years ago. You still live in the same neighborhoods that you lived in 15 years ago. You're still driving the same make and vehicle and year of car that you drove 15 years ago, right? Because your paradigm hasn't changed. But things are changing. You're just recycling the same thoughts and feelings over and over with your paradigm as an unconscious creator. The moment you permit your mind to dwell with dissatisfaction upon things as they are. See, if you're in gratitude about your vision, your fantasy, you can't get into dissatisfaction. You're either one or the other. So he's teaching me a practical application right here. As I was reading the book, I had to figure out the work I needed to do. This is teaching me that right here. The moment you permit your mind to dwell with dissatisfaction. See, I don't read things fast. I would go back and I would read this paragraph probably 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And then this page, probably 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Till I really got it before I moved on to the next chapter. I read the whole book in one night, but then I would go back and reread and pick apart. Okay? So the moment you permit your mind to dwell with dissatisfaction upon things as they are. So that's why I'd come up with, you got to guard your focus with your life, because any moment you could be going down the wrong path if you're not paying attention. Any moment you could be going down the wrong path. Guard your focus with your life, because it depends on it. The moment you permit your mind to dwell with dissatisfaction, somebody calls you up and says, I don't like the products, I want to send them back. Where does your mind go? Because that's a moment in time. Where's your mind going to go with that? Oh, I'm sorry, it's not working out for you. Was it the taste? What was it? I'm going to try and figure out if there's a way I can salvage this through my expertise, right? And what I know that they may not know. Oh, there's other flavors, and they'll send you another flavor for free, and they'll let you keep that one. Do you want to try another flavor? No, that's not it. I just don't want to do it anymore. Okay. Well, I'm sorry it didn't work out for you. If you change your mind, I'm always here. Let me give you the phone number to the company. They'll help you to return it. And then as soon as I hang up the phone, which is another moment in time, where is my mind? Is it on dissatisfaction or satisfaction? Gratitude. I'll tell you, for me, it's back on gratitude. I'm forgetting about that particular scenario because it doesn't serve me for the person and the future scenarios that I want to be happening more consistently. That one was just because sometimes things happen in a world of entropy and fallibility, right? But also, I'm still have part of my own subconscious that's trailing along with me and the vortex that it's created. It's not going to change things like that in an instant. It's going to be gradual. And I still may have an experience like that, but why do I have more successes than failures? Because I don't let my mind at any moment go to dissatisfaction. Really, at that point, there's no emotion that I've attached to that person. Back in the beginning, there may have been, and I may have really had to work and pull out my 3x5 cards and put them in front of my face to trigger my mind to get back on gratitude. But now, today, I have no emotional attachment to somebody that's not satisfied with our products and wants to return them. or somebody that says no after them seeing the presentation. I seriously, at this point, my mind is too well trained. I don't have any emotional attachment to that. And you might say, well, Dave, that's because you make a 7-figure income annually. Well, yeah, that might have part to do with it, but what came first? The 7-figure annual, or the fact that I didn't give emotions to other things that cause dissatisfaction where other people do? That's the difference. It's part of the big difference. I'm in control of my emotions, and they serve me. My emotions serve me. Most people's emotions, you serve them because you're not in control of your emotions. I'm still working to this day on doing that as a whole person, as a husband, as a father, as a citizen. I'm still working on that. The moment you permit your mind to dwell with dissatisfaction upon things as they are, you begin to lose ground. Why? Because you don't have the hammer and you're not hitting nails in anymore. You see that? The moment you go into dissatisfaction, you're not swinging the hammer, you're not cutting with the saw, you're not building the building. You walked away from the construction site, or maybe you're at the construction site, but you're taking a break. So that building is not going to be built. Do you see the essential nature of constant and strong? What it really means by strong is that you created the right feelings. You have the right feelings. Do you guys see the essential nature of that now? The building is not being built when you're in dissatisfaction. You lose ground. I've never said it like that before, but that's the understanding that I had inside me as to how important I keep my mind at home. When Lenny said, how often do you do it? You must do it for or how long do you do it in the morning? You must do it for 2 hours. I said, no, I try to find the times when I'm not doing it and get back to doing it. Because when I'm not doing it in the beginning, that building is not completed yet. And so it's not being built. There's no progress. I'm losing ground if I'm not doing it. You fix attention upon the common, the ordinary, the poor, and the squalid and mean. I like some of these words. I could imagine what that word means without looking it up, but the poor, the ordinary, the squalid, it's a fun word to say, squalid, and mean, right? And your mind takes the form of these things. Then you will transmit these forms or mental images to the formless. And what does the formless do? It begins immediately, like a magnet, to construct the puzzle pieces together. I see that on a molecular level. And when it comes to humans, humans are influenceable. Humans can be influenced, right? So as I'm doing this, those molecules and molecular structures that are created out of that, they start to piece together based on what my image is. And just like the 2x4s and the drywall and the wiring all going together, everything that's needful is starting to be put together like a puzzle piece. Out of my sight, out of my awareness, but I know that it's happening. I came to that belief because of the principles, and then also I tried everything else and nothing else has worked, so I might as well try this and see if this works, right? But it felt good to me. It actually went in alignment with who I believed all of us are, children of God. Oh, this is the practical application of being a child of God. It made sense to me that if I'm going to create something, it has to start within me, and there has to be a certain behavior, a certain work that I'm doing. And it just made sense to me on a more profound level. So permit these forms or mental images to the formless. And the common, the poor and the squalid and the mean will come to you. Or the beautiful, the awesome, the intentional, the fantasy, the dream will come to you. Just depends. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it will achieve. To permit, so we hear those maxims, but most teachers or most people who articulate those maxims, they just repeat them, and then they go into your income producing activities, right? You got to wake up every day, and you got to work your schedule, and you got to know your goals, and and they don't get into this stuff. They just repeat the maxims. You're great. You can accomplish anything. Anything's possible. Impossible, put a little comma on top, and it's I'm possible. And now let's talk about what you need to do. All right, you're going to go out and you're going to create these actions, these action steps. Do you see where most personal development programs focus on the wrong thing? It's incomplete. Let me pull up this here. It was the most frustrating thing to me because I was committed to giving excellence to those programs, but they weren't changing the results. I was as far away from my goals and dreams as I could possibly be. So they'll repeat the maxims. Let's see, I gotta move this out of here. Personal development and your goals. This is the income producing activities down here. So this is the receiving part of what you're attracting. You'll only receive in relationship to what you believe inside of you. And it may not be that you're a non-believer and you're a skeptic, you just haven't proactively built the fantasy in the right way. Make sense? So it's not that you're a bad person or you're doing something wrong, you're just doing it incomplete. You didn't know that there's a law of assumption, a law of assuming the wish is already a reality. And so therefore you never took your mind there. That was the big thing that I was missing in my life because I always worked with excellence. I always put pride and excellence into my work. I just didn't know there was a law of assumption. Assume the fantasy is already real and a reality. And so I was only matching where my mind would go. So when you go to the personal development, they would, in the seminars, repeat the maxims that are talking about being up here at the 8, the 9, and the 10, but they would just repeat the maxim. They didn't repeat the practical application and the principles and how you change your behavior up here. They'd go back to here. Oh, you're just not working it hard enough. You're not giving it enough hours. You didn't learn how to influence people enough. So let's talk about those skills, right? And they would work this down here. They would repeat the maxims up here, but then they would focus down here. 99% of personal development programs are that way. Make sense? So to permit your mind to dwell upon the inferior is to become inferior and to surround yourself with inferior things. Right. On the other hand, to fix your attention on the best is to surround yourself with the best and to become the best. Make sure you're not engaging and agreeing with conversations that are less than. You want to be around people that are outgrowing their current position. They're on that journey. And trust me, there's not a lot of people out there. So what did I do? I'm an introvert by nature. I like being alone. I like being left with my own thoughts. But at work, I would engage with other people. When they took their smoke breaks, I'd go out there and hang out with them and talk with them. And I would engage in the conversations that they were having, which were mean, squalid. What were the words? They were common, ordinary, poor, squalid, and mean. That's the kind of conversations that I was surrounded with and that I would engage in and agree with. And the moment I read this book and I was reading, I'd go in the bathroom at work and I would read the book pretending like I was going to the bathroom. I would go on extended test drives. I would have the book on the engine while my hands were moving the nuts and bolts and changing the spark plugs. I'd be reading things over. I'd be reading the paragraph over and over, or the sentence over and over. And I didn't have, have you ever noticed how you read something and then you start thinking and you try to maintain what you read and then you try to say word for word in your mind what you had read and you're way off, you can't even remember how they framed up that one sentence, I'd go back and I'd have the book there so that I could reread that sentence exactly the way it was said, because it wasn't the way I was used to thinking, but it was the way I needed to be thinking. I would write the sentences down on a 3x5 card. I still do that. I do it with my phone app now, 3x5 cards. I don't want to forget that way of saying it. All right, so the creative power within us. So again, that comes down to the practical application. So I was saying, you know, I started to excuse myself from that group. Not that I was better than them. It's just for me, my family, and God wanted more out of life. And so I excluded myself, and they noticed. I tried to bring some of them along with me. Not one of them came along with me from that entire dealership. The entire dealership. Some people in the sales department got on the product. Some service advisors got on the product. No mechanics got on the product. Isn't that crazy? No mechanics got on the product. Some people in the parts department got on the product. The general manager and the owner ended up getting on the products. None of them wanted to go on the journey that I did, on the level that I did. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Right? Did I let that stop me? I didn't need their permission. I didn't need their validation. I could see things that they couldn't see. Doesn't make me better than them. It just means I'm going to go in a different direction with my life. Okay? So how did I do? I wasn't worried. Look, I'm a nice person. I don't like the feelings of somebody else's feelings being hurt, especially me causing that, but in general. And I think most people are like that. So I just did it with the best tactfulness that I could, right? But I didn't let it stop me, okay? Until you don't care what other people think, you'll go nowhere, all right? So I just less and less had conversations. I still was in their presence. I still mingled, so to speak. No, I didn't mingle. I still recognized them as individuals and treated them as such, right? But I didn't have to engage in drawn out conversations, okay? And I didn't create any enemies in the process either. I don't know what they said behind my back, but I didn't feel like I was creating any enemies because I didn't say anything mean to anybody, right? Do other people feel threatened around you when you do that? Absolutely. Now, I don't know that they felt threatened. Maybe. I wasn't concerned, so I didn't try to find out. But I know that when you strive to outgrow your current position, other people feel threatened because they know that they could be doing more and that they're not doing as much as they can be doing. And that's a threat to another individual. All right. But that didn't concern me. I still showed love, compassion, and then continually invited. But I wasn't going to wait around. The creative power within us makes us into the image of that to which we give our attention. We are thinking substance. And what happened is I started to create new friends. I attracted new friends, and they were within Isagenix. It was an incredible culture and environment. And I was very fortunate and blessed to have that right here in St. George, to have that I could tap into. But I also tapped into it by going to the events and creating friends and connections and communications there. And then what happened? I started to create my own team and people that thought like I did now, people that wanted things like I did. You see that transition? Started to create my own team, my own ISA family within the bigger ISA family. And it's just never been the same ever since, 15 years now. We are thinking substance, and thinking substance always takes the form of that which it thinks about. I love that doctrine. I love that principle right there. It gives personal accountability, personal responsibility, And, the buck stops here. But it empowered me at the same time because I didn't have to know the how. And I didn't have to influence people that didn't want to be influenced. My future did not depend on the immediate people around me. That's an important thing to write down and remember, because so many people think that their business depends on the people they know in their inner circle, which is usually their spouse, their family, and a few close friends or coworkers. It doesn't. You'll attract. That's where the big H, that's the understanding of the law of attraction. Thinking substance is everywhere. It's in the inner spaces of the everything. And that it would bring to me every needful thing. He talks about that in this book. I think we already read the part about the gold being mined from the mountains if I wanted gold, right? So, the sewing machine. So, that's an important part to remember to understand in the practical application. When you keep your mind at home and you are engaged in the income producing activities on the level that you can be, things happen, miracles happen, divine connections happen. But they're really not miracles to me anymore, because a miracle is something that you don't understand how it happened. It went beyond your finite mind's ability to understand, how did that happen? Now, the water's being parted and they walked through the Red Sea on dry ground. That's a miracle still to me. I don't know how that happened. I might have some kind of understanding about that and how it caused to happen, but how it actually happened, I don't know. But people showing up, I know how it happens now. All right, so we are thinking substance, and thinking substance always takes the form of that which it thinks about. It's not a wand, it's not a magic wand that makes something happen out of nothing. And understanding this gave me greater empowerment and peace and understanding when it comes to the unfortunate things that happen in this world. It gives me a sense of understanding about that. It's not a chaotic world. Everything is orderly. But when it comes to the way people think and feel, and the feelings that they carry and the things that they say, it helps me to understand why some things happen in a world where fallible things can happen. All right, so I'm gonna stop right there. Let me make a little, let me just highlight that so I can remember where we were at. Okay, so I'm just gonna open it up. Do you see now the reason, actually before I do you see now the reason for this in your 3x5 cards? And your why, really making the goal, your why, big enough that you'll stay engaged in the work, the mental work, which is the spiritual world, which is it's the most real world that there is. And you don't have to have physical eyes to see it. That's the whole, I was blind, but now I see. Well, wait, I had 20/20 vision. What do I see that I didn't see before? The spiritual world and the principles that it rests on. Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
You had asked about having us share some of our affirmations and some of the, and I could show you some of the stuff I've done to attract you. You know, there's a number of people on this call that would not be on this call if I had not done the work that you're talking about. You know, doing the affirmations twice a day on a, and of course I transferred them from 3x5 cards onto my phone because I'm always carrying my phone. So they're always there. And, but I started with 3x5 cards originally. And why don't I do a quick screen share and I'll show you.
Yeah, do that. And let's leave enough time for people to share because I want to get some other people to share. But yeah, go ahead. And because you did it, right? This is something that you did and it actually materialized. And I just want to say, go ahead and pull up your screen and show that, just to preface you doing that. All of us have done this with something that we've achieved. We just didn't realize what was the underworkings that made it happen. We were so fixed in our minds and sure of it. But we can do that in any way that we desire with everything. Go ahead, Malcolm.
So
Sure.
The thing that a lot of people, there's basically three huge benefits to this business. Obviously, big money, free time, better health, okay? But the personal development portion, I think a lot of people miss, you know? And for me, the personal development was a lifesaver because, and this particular screen was the culmination of a journey that at first I couldn't imagine. Okay, you know, when we say you said, Dave, that the how is none of your business. I had no clue how I would get to this point where I trusted God enough to pray only for knowledge of his will for me and the power to carry that out. Okay? In order to drop my agenda. I was addicted to my personal agenda and just could not imagine dropping that and doing something else. The other thing I wanted to point out, as you're reading Wallace Wattles is a gold mine, a literal gold mine of affirmations, okay? As Dave was reading today, I came up with another affirmation. I fix my attention on the best, surrounding myself with the best while I become the best. What you can do is you can take the words of Wallace Wattles and you can make them your own, and you can internalize them with an affirmation. And so what's happened is, since we started doing this book, I began to weave Wallace Wattles into my daily life. You know, this was the affirmation on, you know, Dave read the how is none of your business. The affirmation, what that looks like is, for me, was everything I do turns out exquisitely better than I could have ever planned because I'm far from oppression and fear. And because I had to let go of trying to plan out everything and say, well, this person is gonna be a millionaire for sure, right? And be so attached to this scenario that wasn't God's scenario, it was my scenario, okay? And I had to let go of Malcolm's scenario and allow the law of attraction to work, okay? And not be attached to one person or another person. I made one of Dave's sheets when he first did the template with me. I made that one of my affirmations, okay? I took what Dave wrote. I'm so grateful and excited that I'm on my way to Platinum 7-star, okay? When I started this, I couldn't imagine Platinum 7-star, okay? I wasn't wrapping my mind around it. 200 cycles a week, over 10,000 a week. I'd never made that kind of money. So I kept getting pulled back to the squalid and the mean instead of visualizing the bigger, okay? So I made that an affirmation. And when I look at this over and over again, my subconscious mind eventually will say, okay, Malcolm, you're not going to give up. So I'm going to make this your new reality, right? But I have to, it's like training a dog. I don't just give up and say, well, I'm just going to let the dog piss on the carpets, okay? No, I'm going to make sure that the dog goes outside, okay? You know, it seems like a no-brainer, but you have to stay with your subconscious mind because it's like a dog. It takes instruction, but it doesn't take instruction immediately. And of course, this one, you know, when we went to see Rod Hairston, I did an affirmation in that regard. I used that picture of you and Carrie and your two boys and that and Cindy. That was very fond memory. But I added to that Wallace Wattles. Wallace Wattles says, all is right with the world. He's saying, don't focus on the squalid and mean. And what that looks like to me is, I'm saying all is right with the world. I don't need to worry about what those Democrats are doing or what those Republicans are doing or whatever craziness is happening in the news. If I just say to myself, all is right with the world, those people are evolving into what they need to be, and I'm going to focus on what I'm doing, right? Because the only thing I can change is Malcolm. So I've begun to systematically incorporate Wallace Wattles into my, and you know, it's easy to get distracted with lots and lots of books, okay? Because everybody's recommending books, but Wallace Wattles really distills it down to the essence. It's simple and it's very compact and powerful, and it's a simple way to start, and that's why I recommend it. So I'm going to shut up for now.
This was awesome. I'm so glad. I want you to go back 2 slides. This is awesome what you just shared. I'm grateful that you did. Right here where Malcolm has that money, it's not I'm going to, it's already done. He's using the law of assumption right here, right? And he's not worrying about the how. It's already done. And this is a trigger for him to influence his subconscious mind, which, like you said, it only can take instruction. The subconscious can only take instruction. It can't decide anything. It's only going to take the input. It can't give output. It takes the input, and then through God's divine universe, it manifests itself into a mirror replication in the physical world. The next slide too, again.
You know, Dave, I wanted to mention, this is also a feeling slide, okay? So this is at 11,000 feet at the top of Mammoth, okay? So this is the place where it's only black diamonds to get off the mountain, okay? And it's that feeling. So I'm connecting the feeling, right, with a picture to the powerful affirmation, right? So I'm driving it deeper and deeper into Malcolm as my new reality, and using the feeling to convince the subconscious mind, Malcolm is really playing for keeps here, okay? This is not a game. It's really cool.
Yeah. I like how you use the example of the dog too, and training a dog. A dog's not going to train itself. It takes instructions. That's a really good parallel. And how the dog doesn't take the instructions the first time it's given and master them, right? And so it takes patience. It takes consistency, and not telling the dog to do one thing one way one time and then do another thing another way that's exactly the opposite another time. And that's what we do with our brains. Even people who do their affirmations like this, at one time, you're going to be telling your brain, this is how I want you to do it. And another time, you're going to be totally negating that by telling it to do it this way, because you're letting the emotions get the best of you instead of disciplining your mental faculties and having a clear-cut goal that you finally resided on. While you were talking, it was just reminding me, in constant contact with God is what you put. It's God's divine universe, and you are now a co-partner with God in what you're engaged in, what you've decided on, and you're now doing this with. You're engaged as a co-creator, a co-partner with God. So many people are waiting for God to tell them what to do. Well, isn't that an interesting dichotomy? Because it's God who's waiting for you to eventually decide on what it is you're going to do. God will never tell you what to do. And a lot of people second guess what they think it is that God wants them to do. And they're second guessing all day long, and they keep changing their mind as to what they think God wants them to do. It's not how it works. God's giving you the canvas and the paints and everything to do with painting your picture. He's not going to paint the picture for you. He will support you in the picture that you want to paint. And he's already answered every prayer you've ever asked. You just have to do your part. And this is it. We're learning how to paint masterfully the picture that you want. Not the one that you think he thinks whatever you should be doing. Decide what is it you want. Just make sure that it's good. It's creating a better life for you. It's creating a better life for other people. That's what your foundation needs to rest on. And then go for it.
And one of God's promises is that I am God's child, and I am born again of the perfect seed of the Word of God, which lives and abides in me forever. Right? That's a promise. God can't break his promises. It's impossible.
You guys, when you're operating on this level and you're in harmony with your blueprint, you are in constant contact with God. You are like his friend, you're his partner, you're his associate, you're working with God in a harmonious way. And I would tell people, they would say, well, this is taking God out of it. I'm like, wait, what part did you miss? I've never felt closer to God in my entire life, learning these principles and applying them in my life. Because when you're doing it, you are in constant connection with God. You partnered up with him. And now I've never felt closer to God in an association than when I'm doing this and I'm nailing it. You guys get that? It's his universe, and I'm now partnered up with him in his universe based on principles. All right, I want to get some other input or some other from some of you guys that are applying this. Give me some feedback. Go ahead, Melissa. You're muted out.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I wanted to thank you so much. There was such an aha moment last week about just constantly focus on your goal and just a lot of things happening and just going, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about my vision. So just defaulting to the why that makes you cry, you know, no matter what the circumstance, has been really good. And I appreciate these in the book on the page, the creative power. It's just kind of mind blowing, even though it sounds simple. Sometimes the simple thing's hardest to get, but that even like one little thing that is created on the earth started with a thought. And so just working on Feeling is the Secret. I haven't been listening to that like every day in my car, and just getting to that subconscious and just applying the fact that we have to choose what we think about and train ourselves, like Malcolm was saying, so we don't default to the bad behavior or of not being trained or disobedient. So it's been really, really helpful to pick the things I think about. I think Teresa said that she's having trouble visualizing, and it just takes practice. It took me a while to see myself finishing Alcatraz, but one day in the car it came. I kept thinking about it, and then I started bawling. I was like, okay, I got the feeling of as it's already accomplished. So for some old brains, you know, sometimes it takes a little longer for me, but it's then Malcolm confronted me on a call a week and a half ago about what's the why that makes me cry. And I thought I wrote my why, but it didn't make me cry. It was just like, you know, and I've been thinking about a why for a couple years actually. And so then I explained my why and I was crying. So now I'm working on always focusing on my why that makes me cry. So it's a process. I know you've told us 100 times since I've been on these calls 100 times, but it's a real deal. And I was thinking about the creative power and the competitive. And when you said your guys at work, you know, they didn't come along because of that competitive spirit, not the creative side that they actually embrace, which is on that same page of 68 in the book, you know. And then I just know for certain that faith is born of gratitude, that when we're grateful and we see that thing accomplished in our minds before it even happens, I mean, that's honestly, faith is the evidence of things we don't, that we haven't accomplished yet. And we're just trusting God for that how. And so I've seen it in a few things in my life, and my friends have changed. I'm trying to just surround myself by those, since this COVID thing, we've got Zoom, and I'm not hanging out with a bunch of friends that are negative, and it's been really a great mental quarantine, in a lot of ways.
Thanks, Melissa.
That's a lot, but I'm sorry.
A couple things that what you just said, powerful. First of all, you can't turn your thoughts off. Have you noticed? That's because you're a divine offspring of God, and that power can't be turned off. It's the creative power that flows to and through you. So it is totally pure. Frame up that energy into images, pictures, and feelings, and then that leaves us. So it comes in, not deciding where that power is going to be distributed, and then as it comes out of us in the way of feelings and images and emotions, there's the picture. And you can't turn that power off, ever, not even while you're asleep. That should be a clue to you. You can't turn it off. That's the infinite power. That's the power, that's the creative power. And it comes to and through you, comes into you pure, and then we defile it, or we make it beautiful. All right, and so when it leaves us, what's it going to do? It's going to create the exact same images. How do I know what you're thinking about? What your environment is? How do I know about what you think about of yourself and your health and your fitness level? By just looking at you, because it's a mirror reflection of what's going on inside. So also, you can turn that faith. We know that faith is the moving power of all things. Faith is what moves mountains, right? But we can flip that switch on and off. We can turn the faith switch on in a moment, and in another moment, we can turn it off. Look at Peter. He walked on the water. It was flipped on. But then he started to sink. It was flipped off. Do you see the power of decision and the lack of discipline? Yeah. And also the power of discipline and what that could do for you in your life. You could go from one magnificent wind to the next. You could walk on water, so to speak, consistently without sinking.
Yeah, it's great.
I know that if I spent enough time and I influenced my mind that I could walk on water, I would. That if I could get past the skepticism and build a neural net that it's normal for me to walk on water, I would. It would mirror reflect in the physical world. But I'm not going to spend the time to do that. Walking on water is not important to me. What is important to me is the practical application of daily life. But it would be the same principles that would enable me to walk on water. Once I got past the skepticism and I built a faith, absolutely I'd walk on water. It's not a miracle in that sense. It's the power of faith and understanding what creates the physical reality. And it might take me my whole rest of my life trying to get past the skepticism of walking on water, right? But if I didn't give up, eventually I would. All right, anybody else? Dolores says you can't unmute yourself. I'm gonna try and unmute all of this again.
He's not.
Mute all. You should allow, okay, there we go. Now you should be able to unmute yourself. Sorry about that. Dolores?
Thanks, Dave. I just want to point out, I've always been a bit of a skeptic about the business of visions and having a vision board and this type of thing. Myself and Dolores, we moved from Saskatchewan to Alberta, which is about 1,000 kilometers, about 6 months ago. We went into a rented accommodation, but we'd seen a house that we fell in love with. And we didn't know how we were ever going to get it. But on my vision board, I had a picture of that house. And every morning when I went into my office and looked at my vision board, that was the first thing I seen, was the picture of the house. And I didn't know how we were ever going to get into it. But 3 weeks ago, maybe 4, it happened. And I'm actually talking to you now from inside of that house that I had on my vision board.
Wow.
And I had no idea how we were going to do it, but it materialized. We're here. I've actually got a cry in my eye when I'm saying this, because it's just absolutely awesome. And I thank you for a lot of your direction that you've pointed me in. And I'm not the person that I used to be, but I'm getting better every day.
Chills are going, that energy is going through my body right now, just in waves. That's, again, there's an example of the reality of this. Our minds play tricks on us. It's that normalcy bias. And we either just disregard what he just said, or we try to make sense of it with our finite minds, and we disregard everything we talked about this morning, the principles in the book. And our minds will do that to us. You've got to be aware of what you're thinking, you guys, and take control of your life. Take control of your thoughts. Take control of what you believe in. Otherwise, the mind is going to take you out. The drunk monkey is going to take you out. Thank you for sharing that. Very powerful. Right? Anybody else? We're getting close to time. That's exactly what I was wanting, something like that. Yeah.
Yes, Dave. Real quick, I do appreciate everything that you teach us and share. And on the subject of your visionary board, my mother used to teach me, God bless her soul, she used to teach me, and this was all combined, and not just the visionary board, but you have to work at it. And you can't just expect God to give you what you want just because you're praying for it. She said you have to work for that also from your heart and your mind. And she would tell me, be careful what you say, because the universe hears you. When you say proud words, you can't get them back. You can't take them back. And she would say, don't be afraid to also pray and visualize what you want, not just what you need. She said, because people sometimes feel guilty about it. It has to be what I need, not what I want. Not true. So a visionary board has been a big part of my life, also with my religion and with the faith, practice, and study and our prayers. We have our visionary board to manifest what you want, but you have to implement the other things, which is work at it. And I used to be hurt very much by people when I talked to them about Isogenesis, the Forever Pack. Yes, and they would say things that hurt you, especially people you know. It does hurt, but I've learned to let that go. The only thing that used to really, really hurt me 100% was people who would laugh at me and say negative things. And they're the people I care about that I'm trying to help the most. So I've learned to okay, don't let that hurt you so much, but go back to my vision, my why, like you're saying. Sometimes I can't sleep at night. I mean, I have insomnia very badly anyway, but I get up. I mean, you all don't see me, but I am working very hard and diligently trying to, to make this thing work for me, but it's got to come from me. And I have this deep wanting to do this and to help people. It's always been that way from a child up. So I just want to thank you, because that visionary board has been a big part of my life. And yes, you have to work at it. You just can't pray to God to just give you what you want. You gotta, get out there and do the work, like you said, Dave, to make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Have you guys noticed people have a feeling of inadequacy? Join the club. You're not the only one that feels inadequate in this. I still feel inadequate, but I'm better than I used to be because I haven't given up. Right. And, what you were saying there, I wrote down some words that came to mind. Neville Goddard says prayer is not about, it's working with the law. I can't remember the author right off the top of my head. He said, prayer is not about asking and getting. It's about preparing oneself to receive. How are you preparing? You're getting clear on what it is you really want. So clear that you're sharing it with the most supreme being in the universe. Prayer is about what's really important to you and getting clear on that. It's not about asking and getting. You become a co-laborer with God. You're laboring in the vineyard, like network marketing, co-laboring with God. That's what prayer is. And it's, you know, and when you partner up in the right way, you can't be denied. So I appreciate those words, Francais.
Hey, Dave, Digna, how are you?
Hey, good.
Hey, I get fired. I'm telling Willie, Dave fires me up in the morning because it's so powerful. You know, when we listen and I hear the people that are, you know, sharing with us, and you know, a lot of people get in network marketing and they think, you know, they got on, they sign in, they got their products. That's it. We got this. You know, like now I'm going to become a millionaire because they see all the success stories. And Willie and I just know that when we say yes and we're going to go to work, we just know all the sacrifices that we're going to have to put on that table, all the stuff that we're going to have to do. Like, we know we're going to lose a few friends, you know, things are going to happen. The family's going to, you know, point the finger. It doesn't matter, but we already know that's coming with, that's part of the package. But having that clear vision that you know where you're going, it's so powerful. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, people could say no to you. People could say crazy things to you. They could call you whatever they want to call you, but you know where you're going. So it doesn't matter, because I think about your story, Dave, and I think about when you were, you know, the newspapers and the broken window and everything that was going on in your life, and working all those hours and knowing that working hard was not the ticket to success. Because I think, like you and myself and many people that work, like I work corporate America, I work a long hours, and you don't get rich. You don't become wealthy working hard. You have to use your mind a different way. You have to, you know, sometimes any opportunity that comes your way, how you treat that opportunity is what's going to come out of that opportunity. And then I think about you when you got this isogenic spin in your body and you went crazy, like, oh my God, I feel so great. And you started sharing with others. It's like, how does that go from where you were to where you are today? Man, there had to be a lot of hard work and sacrifices, and people saying no to you and closing the door in your face, and family members thinking you went crazy. Even your own kids. Our kids think we're crazy sometimes. You know, my older, you know, our older daughter, she still think we're crazy because we don't give up. And I think that's so powerful. And I think about this because when I look at people in our team and I see that they have the potential to do this, but they don't give it enough time. They don't let it compound enough to give them the results that they deserve, because there's going to be distractions. There's going to be things that are going to happen in the way they are, and you have to be ready for that. The vision has to be so clear and so, I mean, it's so powerful that no matter what happens, it doesn't matter. You just keep going. I mean, your bank account could be double digits negative, and you're still going. And you're talking to people like if you were already a millionaire in isogenics, and you don't have money to pay for your products. And some people are not able, not equipped to do that. This is why we do the daily work. This is why we're reading this thing. This is why we're on this type of conference calls, because this is what's going to give us that fuel to keep going and see those commissions coming even when they're not there yet. So anyway, I just got fired up this morning with you guys. It's so awesome. Thank you for sharing everything.
Now you fired me up. That's a good note to end on. And, you know, I just, as you were talking and something you had said, I triggered the thought about back at the shop. Like, some people are going to say no, right? People said no to me. As excited as I was, and as much social proof as my body was to the other mechanics, none of the mechanics got on the products. Did they need them? Yes. Did they want them? No. Okay. So what might get some people stuck is thinking you're going to lose friends and then you don't have any friends, right? You guys, I put new friends in parentheses, in quotes. I have not forgot the experiences that I had with those mechanics, good and bad. It's part of my history now. It's part of my experience, and I treasure that. I think about those guys not often, but when I do, there's things that put a smile on my face because of the camaraderie we had. But they're not, this word friends, maybe we ought to come up with another meaning or some way. They're acquaintances in my life. Yeah, they fall under the category of friends, but I have new friends that were acquaintances that have become new people and new experiences in my life that I treasure and that I'm so grateful for. It doesn't mean that I erase the past. I would never erase the past. I love the thoughts of me sweating in that shop with those guys. We were in the trenches together. You know, we suffered together. We rejoiced together. Part of my experience, but I'm not going to stay stuck there. And I think a lot of people feel like, well, those are my friends. Well, I think you need to reevaluate what friends mean and maybe take on that word acquaintances and experiences and memories that you get to bring with you and expand that into, you know, a greater world, a greater experience with more acquaintances and more memories. I really feel like some people get stuck in that little environment that they have, that they created their world around them, that circle, and they're not getting out of that circle because they can't get past losing friends. You're not going to lose friends. They were acquaintances, and you're going to get to take those memories with you as long as you want, right? Okay, so what that's worth. Man, I just have such a great hope and a great feeling of possibility. And what Malcolm was saying too earlier too about the world, there's a lot going on in the world that could get our attention in a negative way. You guys, in the Bible, it talks about the wicked falling on their own swords. Just because I'm not paying attention to what's going on and getting involved, I'm creating the world that I want. I'm creating the reality that I want. The good reality, the awesome, the uplifting, the leveling up, the outgrowing our current position by getting better and better world. That world's growing just the same as this other world is growing. It's just getting attention from the media. And trust me, there are two forces, God and the devil knows how to influence people. Influence, do you get that? Influence people with images and feelings. Bad images and bad feelings. Well, if he's the author of evil, then what would he want to be promoting? And whose side am I taking when I give the emotions of that environment? Who am I fostering and growing? Because where your energy goes, that thing grows. Or I should say where your emotions go, that thing grows. Keep your mind on the world becoming. People are becoming. The world is going to awesomeness. Heaven is expanding on earth. And those two opposing worlds, they will resolve themselves in the way that they resolve them. That how I'm not concerned with. The one I'm concerned with is building a better world for tomorrow. All right, you guys, go watch the movie Tomorrowland. That's a good movie. Watch Tomorrowland. It's right along the lines of what we're learning here. And watch the difference one person can make, even a young teenager. Watch the difference that one person can make. Tomorrowland, I think it's called. All right? Okay, you guys, have a great day. We'll see you tonight on the Zoom. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your shares.
Thank you so much.